We are not a hate group. We are not affiliated with any other Israelite group. Israel United in Christ is a nonviolent Bible-based movement. We do not advocate or condone any acts of violence against any race, ethnicity, gender. We advise that if anyone hears or knows of any plots to cause harm to anyone or to break the laws of the land, you must contact the proper authorities to bring awareness to any possible threat, as stated in Leviticus 5:1.
Hey, Israel, shalom, shalom. Most High in Christ bless. Welcome to another Thursday edition, 10:30 Eastern Time, 9:30 Central Time, doggone 8:30 Mountain Time, and 7:30 Pacific Time. We are your hosts. My name is Captain Shim.
Officer Matt.
Officer Micah.
Officer Iran.
All praise, Officer Iran's feeling it. Hey, put up that thumbnail before we jump to Watchman Report with Officer Micah. There's a thumbnail. We always start. Officer Mikael is doing some IUIC official training right now, and he's not with us, Officer Mikael. Shout out to Officer Mikael. So, look, this is something that today we're going to get into. We're going to talk about the history of housing projects in the United States, but we're going to focus on one particular housing project here in the greater New Orleans area known as the Fische. Not like not like fish that's in the sea, but Fische projects. And what has happened when you look at the, let's put this together. There's a picture of some young black men, a light-skinned brother and another brother, a medium-skinned brother to the right. And then you can see that it looks like they're on Canal Street with there's a man named James Belly, or I can't read that. Betty or something. We're going to get into, say again? Billy. James Billy. A couple of brothers were murdered, and they stood up, okay? And so precept to protect and serve. So what happens is the police oftentimes are set up to protect and serve our community. They're actually, some places they're known as, they're supposed to be called peace officers. But in the particular situation where in the Fische projects, they murdered the people, just like they did in Philadelphia, just like they did in Rosewood, just like they did in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This happened right here in NOLA, New Orleans, Louisiana. And this is actually some of the brothers in this room grew up around here, and I actually work about a half mile or less from this area, and they redid them all. Anyway, so that being said, just know that's what the segue for the show. And we're going to jump right into the Watchman Report before we get going. Officer Micah, and we're going to stay tuned. Starting next week, we're going to have a slightly new format. We're on the road to 20,000 K for subscribers. We're getting there. We're doing well. We want to keep growing and growing and growing, so we're going to switch up our content. So, hey, if you don't have had a chance to do so yet, subscribe to IUIC New Orleans. Hit the bell notification, subscribe, share, and whatever you tech nerds do, just do all that, okay? Officer Micah, take it away.
Shalom, Israel. Most High in Christ bless. It's good to be back. All praise to the Most High. Let's get right into it. Do not want to hold up the show. First article, please. China sends 71 warplanes, 7 ships towards Taiwan in 24 hours. So they ain't playing no games. They still sending them warplanes. Next articles, please. Russian Lavor, either Ukraine fulfills Moscow's proposal or our army will decide. So they all rolling in the spirit of Putin over there. It's war. They say it's wartime. Next article. The UN has said nuclear war is back within the realm of possibility. Here are the places in the U.S. most likely to be hit in a nuclear attack. So you might want to go. It's a 5-minute read. I checked it out. Might want to go check it out. Some pretty useful tips in there, but we know we got to keep the commandments. Next article. South Korea must respond to North Korea despite its nuclear arms. Yoon. So everybody getting them nuclear bombs, y'all. Next article, please. Georgia man, 29, is arrested after becoming enraged when someone ate his pork chop 3 months after he threw a slab of meat at his mother. So they talking about nukes and fighter jets, but this brother concerned about fighting over pork. This concludes the Watchman Report.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Look, we're going to get right into it. Before we get into the Fische projects and what happened, because it was a massacre, what happened to these black folks, the Israelites, I want to go into the history of subsidized housing. Look, we're going to do 12 through 15 to get a background. A lot of you hear the term projects, you hear the term housing projects, and it's a lot further than 1980s, okay? When we came out of slavery in 1865, we didn't have places to go to. So we're going to get into it. Let me just read the articles. Starting with number 12.
Subsidized housing in the United States.
Okay, this is Wikipedia. I just wanted to show you. Scroll down real quick to, bear with me. Oh, I just had it. Where the article right below it says the 20-story John F. Highland houses in Bushwick neighborhood of Brooklyn. We're going to start with subsidized. We're going to do a little bit of reading because it's good information. A lot of people hear things about the projects, and they think that everybody from the, maybe not a lot of us in the truth, but a lot of people think if you're from the projects, you're not smart. If you're from the projects, you're ignorant. And sometimes that's true, but for the most part, it's circumstantial. And some of the best people and brightest people were born and raised in housing projects. Let's go ahead and read that.
The 20-story John F. Highland housing in the Bushwick neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York City.
That's Brooklyn, New York. That's the largest populated borough in New York City. Brooklyn, New York, if it was a city in itself, it would be one of the top 6 populations, just the borough itself. It's huge. That's where we did the Brooklyn Barclays, where we, showed our unity. That not too far from Bushwick, actually. And is it too far? A little bit of ways from Bushwick. Read on.
Subsidized apartment buildings, often referred to as housing projects.
So subsidized means that, for example, you would pay 70% of the housing officials would pay 70%, and they base it upon 30% of your income. So you would get a very low. So your rent might be $1,000. And you might want to pay $256, so something along the lines of that's what subsidized means. Read on.
Often referred to as housing projects are simply the projects. Have a complicated and often notorious history in the United States.
So we're going to read about the history, and then it's going to help us to segue into what happened at the Fische projects to prove that we're going to build the case. Read on.
While the first decades of projects were built in higher construction,
I want to stress this point, and I'm going to make the connection. It says while the first decades of projects were built with a higher construction standards. Okay, now there's a reason why I'm gonna pose a question. Why, audience, do you think that when they first started building housing projects, they were built with higher standards and better material? That's a question I want you to think about. Now we're gonna move on. We're gonna find out. Read on.
While the first decades of projects were built with higher construction standards and a broader range of incomes and same applicants, over time, public housing increasingly became the housing of last resort in many cities.
Read on.
Several reasons have been cited for this negative trend, including the failure of Congress to provide sufficient funding, a lowering of standards for occupancy.
I mean, they stopped screening people. They stopped screening people to the point where anybody could get in. And you know what? People need a place to live. I'm not knocking that, but the projects became very, very low standards of regulation trying to get in, and that's why you have dudes rolling in, not paying rent, freeloading. It is what it is. This America created circumstances. I'm not justifying what they did. Read on.
And mismanagement at the local level.
Now, scroll down, because there's a lot, but let me see something real quick. Scroll down. Yes, let's go down to You see what it says, beginning primarily in the 1970s.
Beginning primarily in the 1970s, the federal government turned to other approaches, including the project-based Section 8 program.
So Section 8, to what a lot of people don't understand, it didn't even really start until the 70s. Before that, in the 30s, 40s, and the 50s, it was just housing development. You lived, that's where you lived at. Section 8 became a little later on where now you could get what they call a voucher. Then you could go to different areas, and sometimes you could even go to like a regular neighborhood, like if you could get rent at a regular apartment complex, like a mixed type of setting. Read on.
Section 8 certificates and the Housing Choice Voucher Program.
So Section 8 has not been around since the 30s. That came around in the 70s. So just be mindful that the first housing, and we're going to go into this. Let's scroll down a little bit more because I don't want to. I got a lot of we got a lot of content. Let's see. Scroll down real quick. I want to see some history, early efforts. Let me see. A little bit more. I want to show you. Hold on. Let me see. 1870. Scroll down, please. Scroll down. Hold up. Scroll up a little bit. Let me see something. Housing. I want to see the part where it talks about. Scroll down a little bit more. Yes, but scroll down a little bit. I'm going here for a reason. A little bit more. Okay. Yes, okay. Right here. Too few qualified applicants. Check this out.
Too few qualified applicants step forward. And the limited dividend program funded only 7 housing projects nationally.
So this is in the early 30s. Watch this.
In the springs of 1934, PWA administrators Harold Ickles directed the Housing Division to undertake the direct construction of public housing.
So roughly in about the mid-30s, the construction of public housing, right? Read on.
A decisive step that would serve as a precedent for the Precedent.
You went to New Orleans public schools? That's this guy. Indiana? Come on, man. Read on. Precedent
for the 1937 Wagner-Stilgall Housing Act.
All right. Come on.
And the permanent public housing program in the United States.
So it led up to 37, a permanent public housing program in the United States. So this is really when it started. And Section 8 didn't start to almost 35 years after that. Okay? So read on.
Kahn stepped down during the reorganization, and between 1934 and 1937, the Housing Division, now headed by Colonel
Horatio B. Hackett, read on,
constructed 52 housing projects across the United States.
Stop. So housing projects between 34 and 37, 52 housing projects. That's a small amount. But check this out. I'm showing that the United States, since the 30s, has had their foot in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Read on.
As well as Puerto Rico.
So the United States built projects in Puerto Rico. Read on.
And the Virgin Islands.
And in the Virgin Islands. I did not know that. And I was researching this. So there's a whole reason why they do these things. Scroll down real quick. I want the part. There's a part where it talks about after World War II. That's what I'm looking for. And oh yes. Let me see. Scroll down a little bit. 37. Scroll down. Yes, right there. This is what I asked the question earlier. I said, why do you think that housing projects, when they first started to build them, were built with quality materials and a high level of construction? This is why we got to research. We research things to the best of our ability. Read on.
World War II era.
I'm not saying Wikipedia is a super source, but for the most part, it's all right. Read on.
When U.S. entered the World War II, ended the era of New Deal's reform.
Right. Read on.
The call for public housing from the NAACP.
National Association, help me out with that one. For advancements of colored people. A black folk movement for equality. Read on.
Women's group and labor unions was
Quieted.
As part of the war mobilization.
That was a big war. World War II was a huge war. A lot of women went to work in the factories because so many men were overseas fighting on multiple fronts. Read on.
Entire communities sprang up around factories. manufacturing military goods.
Entire communities, and that means the women had to shoot up, and that's when women wore dresses, and a lot of them, they could not wear dresses in the factories because it was a safety hazard. Okay, read on.
In 1940, Congress therefore authorized the U.S. Housing Authority to build 20 public housing developments around these private companies to sustain the war effort.
So they started to build these housing authorities around these factories because World War II was from 41 to 45, right? And then they dropped the bomb, which ended the war in Japan. But watch this. This is the reason we gotta go back into history, because there's a reason why projects are the way that they are now. And it's not just because black people are smoking weed and doing drugs. That's not all that. It's just bad that they're doing that. Read on.
There was considerably debate over whether these should be permanent dwellings, furthering.
So housing projects were never really, they never wanted them to be permanent. It was supposed to be set these people up, get them jobs, and then move them on to houses. And they became generational housing projects. Read on.
Furthering reformer goals of establishing a border public housing effort.
Okay, scroll down, because I want to read the whole thing, but we're not. One of the most unusual U.S. public housing initiatives.
One of the most unusual U.S. public housing initiatives was the development of subsidized middle-class housing during the late New Deal, 1940 through 42, under the auspices of the Mutual Ownership Defense Housing Division of the Federal Works Agency.
Okay, we're getting there. Scroll down. World War II, construction of homes.
During World War II, constructions of homes dramatically decreased as all efforts were directed toward the war. When the veterans returned from overseas, they came ready to start a new life.
Scroll down. Okay. Wait. This is it. Is this it? Go ahead, read this.
Housing Act of 1949. With the Office of the Housing Expediter ended, housing efforts moved to look to a new comprehensive approach to address the housing issues. The result was the Housing Act of 1949, which dramatically expanded the role of the federal government.
All right. We're going to stop it. Later on, in another article we're going to read, and I thought it was in this one, there's a reason a lot of white folks began to buy houses, and that's when suburbs began to beef up, while a lot of black people ended up staying in those housing projects. And white people were getting loans, and Negroes wasn't. I'm telling you. So housing progress were not just for black folks. It was for all people around military towns. It was supposed to be temporary, and they were temporary for white people. Okay.
So it was made basically to be like transitional housing.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. Exactly what it was. And I'm going to tell you, that's when, scroll to the next article, which is article number 13. And we're going to do a little bit of reading tonight. Matter of fact, Gabe, do me a favor. Let me know. I don't want to do any more than 20 more minutes of this, and then we want to get to the Fische projects, please. All right. Yes. Let me see. I have a note on this. There should be a note at the top of this. It should say, no, hang on a sec, from Telegram. Is it 13? Section 1934 in the spring. Let's start there. Okay, yes. Okay, that's cool. It's cool. Let me see. This is it. Where them projects is at? Scroll down a little bit. This is my point. So we led up before about, remember we said housing products were generally, like Officer Matt said, transition houses. They were set up for temporary, and they were initially built with good materials. They were built fairly strong, and they were for black and white people. Something changed after World War II. Read.
The FHA institutionalized a practice by which it would seek to maintain racially homogeneous neighborhoods.
Homogeneous neighborhoods, meaning they'd like to have the same people in the neighborhoods. And basically, during that time, was blacks lived over there and whites lived over there. Read on.
Although this practice was struck down by the Supreme Court in 1948 and outlawed by legislation in 1960.
Legislation, 1960. Watch this.
Many white residents in Detroit in the 1940s strongly protested the creation of new public housing units.
Right, because a lot of them that was in those, they got to move on because the government gave them loans in the late 40s, after the mid to late 40s, where a lot of our people did not have the ability to get loans to move to the suburbs or the rural areas. They were stuck in the city. So those projects were designed, and they ended up falling into long-term residency, generational project dwelling. Read on.
When their protests did not help, they left for the suburbs.
Yeah. And why did they leave towards the suburbs? Because they got the loans that they needed to go buy the houses. I'm telling y'all got to see what it is. Here come the word. Read on.
So-called white flight.
That's where you know why? You have to be privileged to be able to flee. Black people couldn't flee nowhere. We had no black flight. White flight because they got loans. They had a place to go. This is their power. Now, scroll down a little bit. Let me see something. Scroll a little bit more. Okay, yes. Oh, let me see something. Hold up. Please, let's say this is it. Come on. Scroll down just a little bit. During World War II. I'm going to find it. Read.
During World War II, construction of homes dramatically decreased. All efforts were directed towards the war.
Now, this is the early to mid 40s. But after that, something changed. When the war was over, the heroes welcome. Everybody came home. They loved the GIs. They stopped Germany from now. There's a joke in the world that if they didn't drop the bomb, you'd be speaking German in America. That's a joke people say. Read on.
When the veterans returned from overseas, they came ready to start a new life.
Come on.
Often with families, and did so with the funding resource of the GI Bill to get a new mortgage.
And what a lot of folks, yes, black people did get loans, but they did not get loans like the proportions or the ratios of white folks got them. Read on.
However, there was not enough housing to accommodate demand.
So that's when you have these, what is it called? Is it redlining? Oh, so Matt, you know about that. That's why if you got people coming in, you got a black guy with a GI loan and a white guy. It's still before the 1960s. Who you think they're going to give the houses to? That's why they were able to flee and get out of the cities and go into these suburbs and create these white suburbs. That's what came out of that.
A good example of that, or a good showing of that, is in that show Them. I think it's on Amazon Prime. That show Them. It showed the white lady in the board meeting with Esau, her bosses, and they were literally saying, all right, we're going to push up interest rates over here. We're going to lower them over here so, white people can have more affordability. We're going to push black people onto this side. We're going to make this more appealing for them. And they literally drew red lines around the map. So if you want to see a visual of that, you can watch that show Them, and it has it in there.
So and why are we going this route? Because when we get into the Fische projects, you're going to see a lot of people that lived in the Fische. You think they wanted to live in the Fische projects? They didn't have a lot of places to go to. So after World War II was a pivotal time in our country. They should have been smaller communities built all over the different parts of the U.S., but in those housing projects should have been transitions for the next poor people come, and then you move them in, moving out, and then you're supposed to tear them down. Okay, they ended up doing it a little bit later on. You got what I want? Okay, this is, come on. Scroll down. Yeah, but we went over that already. Scroll down more. We were way down there, man. We were way down. Scroll down. Oh, go up real quick. I see some point. Wait. There's a part where it says white people. It actually says it right in there. I was surprised they actually said it. Oh God! Scroll down. Let's see. Scroll down. Stop. Scroll down. This might not be it. Let me see. Scroll down a little bit more. Where you see that? Yes, read that. Section 235. This is part of it.
Section 235 of the Housing Act of 1968 encouraged white flight.
So wait a minute. So I want to know, where is the term black flight and where can I read about that? There's no term black flight And because white people, the reason why they could fly away from the Negroes is because they were getting all the loans. They were being protected in redlined, safe places for white folks to go to. Okay? And so when you hear people talk about a lot of black people in the projects, listen, a lot of them, they don't want to be there. Okay, my brother grew up there. He never wanted to be there. He always looking for a way out. Read.
Encouraged white flight from the inner city by selling suburban properties to white and inner city properties to blacks.
You see that? It goes back to Officer Matt. You plug that movie again. Plug that movie again.
Yeah, them. It's a limited series. I believe it's on Amazon Prime. It's really good. They drop a lot of gems in there. A lot of stuff gets dropped in there. It's really heavy. Focus on it. It touches on a lot.
Right. And during this time, remember, many of the black leaders began to become assassinated during this time. Right around this mid-'60s, our brothers was dying. We just got the right to vote 3 years before that. So this is what's building up, because what happened in the Fische projects was not too much after. It was, I think, the early 90s. But remember that we're building, and this is for all. This is for Cabrini Green. This is for the Pink Houses. This is for Crenshaw. This is for all the big projects throughout the United States. This is how they got their start and how they built up. Read on.
Hey, Cap, it's not funny, but it's something how they say the Housing Act of 1968, where they were encouraging white people to go one place and putting black people in the inner city. That very same year, Martin Luther King had a speech called "To Americas,"
Yes.
where he was bringing up that fact, like there's two types of Americas, and one type of America where the American dream happens for one people, and another type of America where it's a nightmare for another type of people, meaning black people. And this right here is touching on exactly what he was mentioning in that speech.
Matter of fact, get in the background, type in, I have failed my people and led them into a burning house. Get a YouTube clip that says Martin Luther King Jr., the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. You got a couple minutes to find it. That's really exactly what he's going into, because Martin was deceived. He thought that he really, if he followed Esau's rules, that he would actually get a piece of the pie. He got a piece of the pie, all right. Read on.
Selling suburban properties to whites and inner city properties to blacks.
Right, watch this.
Thus creating neighborhoods that were racially isolated from other neighborhoods.
And that happened. It happened in Hartford, Connecticut. It happens in New Orleans, Louisiana. It happens in all these different cities throughout St. Louis, Missouri, Chicago, Illinois. Go to Chicago, Illinois. You get a chance. Go to Chicago, Illinois. Go downtown and feel how safe your ass is. Everybody's nice and clean and everything, where the bubbler fountain, where Married with Children, the big fountain is downtown. And then you go to the west side of Chicago. See how many white people you see. Okay, go to the south side. See how many white folks you see. See how safe you feel over there. And these are up to our people. This is all by design. Read on.
Public housing units were often built in predominantly poor and black areas.
See that? So public housing, remember, public housing did not start just for black people, okay? So it was poor in African or American or black areas. Read on.
Reinforcing racial and economic differences and stereotypes between neighborhoods.
Scroll down. We almost done with this. Scroll down. Let me see. Scroll down. Okay. Go to the next article. I really wanted to touch on this more, but I want to get to Fische's. 10:09. Okay, we all right. Go to, I believe was it 14? We was just on 13. 14, I think 14 is going to have what I need. And there's a little note that I put on there. I think I either earmarked or put a particular area I wanted to go. If you could just, I believe I did. This was only less than an hour I give this to you. Does it say jump is needed? Okay. So this is a short, this is the BBC. This is a good one. Because what we're going to find later on is they actually ripped down the Fische projects. And this started to happen in about the 90s, 2000. They started to blow up and destroy high-rise project buildings. But many of New Orleans was taken down.
Yeah, I was a kid when they was blowing up some of the Fische. When I first, because my dad was down here for a little while, and then I came down. So when I first moved down here, where we were living at, you heard about the project that was being demolished. They did the same thing with the Calio project after Katrina. It was still standing. You know, if you listen to a lot of the songs, they talk about the bricks. You know, we up in the bricks. We do this with the bricks. They talking about the housing project, the Calio, and they had to come knock it down after Katrina. It was still standing.
So 14, right? And it's a BBC. We're gonna jump. So why is America pulling down the projects? Because these projects were never designed for long-term residency. And what had happened is I was looking for the part. The reason why they started to take them down, not only because they're temporary, when they first started to build these buildings, white folks lived there too. And they started to construct them very well built. As they started to relocate them to black areas in poor sections, they skimped on building materials. Okay? All of that is by design. It's all set up against the 12 tribes of Israel. Read on.
For decades, some of the poorest people in the U.S. have lived in subsidized housing developments, often known as projects.
You know what I like about our people, man, is I just tell a story. My brother grew up in Brooklyn. He grew up one of the projects we're going to read about in a minute. Brooklyn and the Bronx. And what I realized is that I knew a lot of people, and he came from New York City. And what I realized is that talking to Dave, he was smarter than everybody else. He handled himself under pressure better than everybody. He had more flavor, more style than everybody else. And the reason why is because every damn day of his life, it was about just surviving to get to the next day. Okay? That's how rough these brothers had it in New York City projects and other projects, New Orleans as well. And that's why you have to be innovative. You have to be creative. You have to be able to to talk to people and be shake and move just to be able to survive sometimes. And so that's why, man, when you hear about brothers that come out of the projects and they make something in their life, they had to overcome a lot, all right? And I have someone very close to my life who had to overcome much of that. I saw the things he had to go, and I thank the Lord I didn't have to go through it, but I saw, and it was heartfelt. Read.
For decades, some of the poorest people in the U.S. have lived in subsidized housing developments, often known as projects.
Right.
Many of these projects, however, are now being torn down, and studies suggest only 1 in 3 residents find a home in the mixed-income developments built to replace them.
Meaning when they tear down the projects, the people that are displaced from them, 2/3 of them have difficulty finding and getting new placement, okay? Read on.
Windows are boarded up. Chunks of plaster crumble from the walls, and a collection of soft toys and flowers signify the spots where a young man was recently killed.
What's this? Read on.
Animals get better care and attention to the housing conditions than this, says Philippus Bilal. People can't go to a third world country and say they're shocked at the horrible conditions, but then they drive past people here every day who live in the same.
Type in Karen Bass, Los Angeles mayor. When I was out in California about 2-3 months ago, there's a place called Skid Row Drive. Have you ever heard of Skid Row? In Los Angeles, it is one of the worst places that I had to. They said, Cap, we're gonna come drive through the Skid Row. I said, what's Skid Row? And this was about 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Taste of Soul, Crenshaw, and we went down Skid Row. I really didn't think I was in the United States. A black woman named Karen Bass just became, I think, mayor or deputy of Los Angeles. She declared this. She got there. She's looking at it, and she declared a state of emergency. Which shout out to Karen Bass. She stood up for the when Esau tried to say black national extremists, identity extremists. She checked Esau on that. Lord will she can repent. Pull up Karen Bass, Los Angeles. Get it? Okay. We'll read on as you get that, if you have that. Oh, yeah, see? Karen Bass. I say, Bishop plugged her. That sister. She just became mayor of Los Angeles. This is recently, right? And this just came to me. I didn't plan this. She, see where it says initiative to clean up or state of emergency, if you could. could try clicking on that one. Just try that one. Urgent. Yeah, this is not it. If y'all could find, there's a place. Anyways, in the interest of time, she really understands the struggle, what's going on there, and she is bringing national attention to it and using her reputation to try to solve that. The point is, go back to the article. Those of you who have ever been into certain projects, right? And this is not a stereotype. You will find urine, babies' diapers in the hallway, in the stoops. You will find people strung out, needles in their arms. You will see that. And then you go in some of these apartments, and they like deck like the Taj Mahal. Big TVs, furry rugs, all of that. But then in the hallways and all that leading up to it is a horrible, horrible place. This is right here. To this day, they be there. Like some of the places be like that. Read back to that. Okay. The part where it says animals.
Animals get better care and attention to housing conditions than this, says Phyllis Bell. People can't go to a third world country and say they're shocked at her horrible conditions.
Okay, and let me stop. I challenge all of you. Go to Los Angeles and go to Skid Row. And you'll see that right there is going on right now in Los Angeles, California. Right now. Parts of New Orleans, they started to clean up under the bridge. Still to this day, people live in right under the bridges. They live right there. I pass it every day. But Los Angeles, California, you see block after block after block, just people living on the sidewalks. It's crazy. This is in the United States, which is the second largest city in the United States. It's crazy, y'all. And many of those people are the 12 tribes of Israel.
And Cap,
yes, sir.
Just to back you up, you can actually Google it. And when you Google it, a lot of the images going to come up of them standing tents, like you say, for blocks and blocks.
If you can find it, yeah.
To add to what Cap's bringing out, I had to do some research. It was a guy, Edward Franklin. He actually wrote the Moynihan Report, but Moynihan stole it. And he wrote it back in the early 30s. He was explaining how, due to the discrimination and slavery of the Negro, that's why those conditions still exist. It's a good read. It's called the Moynihan Report. It was explaining how it wasn't due to lack of jobs that our people were living in those projects. It's because Jim Crow, early 60s, he was explaining all this stuff, but then David Moynihan, the Edomite sociologist, he came along and said, I'm going to write this and publish it. But Jake, he was already saying this.
That's heavy. Hey, you got that, you got a bunch of that stuff now. Yeah, hey, pull up that Karen Bass. You put it up there, right? Okay, so now, here's my question. Karen Bass is a black woman. She understands struggle, right? Los Angeles, Skid Row has been like that. Skid Row, you can Google it yourself, has been like that for years and years and years. So you're trying to tell me none of the other political officials see what she sees? I'm telling you, and this is I hope she uses wisdom because she's ruffling feathers, and I pray the Lord guide her, and maybe she can make moves behind the scenes to help the 12 tribes, the Israelites. Is it a video or? Okay, let's go ahead and read that.
Mayor Karen Bass declares state of emergency on homelessness.
And that should have been done damn near decades ago. Read on.
Newly elected mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass declared state of emergency on homelessness as her official first act. Bass' office said that the declaration gives her the authority to lift any current regulations that prevent permanent and temporary housing for the homelessness for the homeless for being built.
See, that's what they do. They'll put a bunch of regulatory, bureaucratic red tape to stop the building. She's like, gives her to lift any current regulations that prevent permanent and temporary housing for the homeless from being built. That to my point before, projects when they first were built for white and black people. They were built with a high standard of high quality materials. As the war ended, white people got loans. They moved to the suburb. They called it white flight. Black people, like Officer Micah said, Jim Crow, institutional racism, lack of jobs. A lot of us was stuck in the project, not because we could not get the hell out. Okay? That's what the real deal is. Now, I'm not advocating third-generation project live. I ain't advocating. If you get the hell out, you get the hell out. Some people do not have it like that. Okay? Read on.
The city can also buy properties and land for housing.
Okay, now, so Karen Bass is about to shake stuff up. I just wanted to point that out real quick. Go back to 15, and we're going to jump to Fische for the rest of the show.
It's crazy because
Go ahead, Micah.
they send people over here from Ukraine, from Afghanistan, and you don't see them dudes popping up tents down there under the Canal
Right.
Street. They putting them somewhere.
And to your point, there's some Esau don't care about some of his own. When you go to Skid Row, any of you brothers in this room and any y'all watching, I'm like, yo, what's the big deal? It's Cat and I was like, yo, I got to bring you over here, man. You got to see this. I'm like, what? You're Los Angeles, like, yo, Hollywood, whatever, right? Man, I'm telling you, I never seen. It was literally, and after you cross out of Skid Row, you back in regular downtown. You're like, what the hell is going? It make you depressed. It's like, this is America, and that's why when Karen Bass she said we got to stop. She said this is a state of emergency. Okay. And a lot of them people are black people, man, Hispanic people, stuck there, man. And that's not even how projects is a step up. At least you got running water. At least you got heat in the projects. Thank the Lord they don't got too cold weather out there. They can actually live outside most of the year. I will say that, but very comfortable temperatures for the most part. Article number 15. Yeah, there's Skid Row. Put that up there, please. I'm telling you, y'all, listen. Skid Row. That's what I'm telling you. That's what the whole block. Look at the picture where it says the Independent. Y'all on home. I'm not talking about one street. I'm talking about block after block after block after block after block after block of that. And this is in Los Angeles, California. California has one of the largest economies in the world. California has a larger economy than most countries in the world. California. And Los Angeles is the chief city in California. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Get me that Martin Luther King. This is what Martin Luther King was talking about. Because we talked about towards the end of his life, he gave a speech that he realized, and this one of the reasons why they killed him is because he started to realize that the approach that he was taking was not going to work, and he began to work with other black figures, and his stance and his ideologies began to slightly change a little bit, and that's why they killed him. They feared the uniting of all black leaders, and Malcolm X and Martin did have talks. Okay, I'm not saying I don't know what they talked about, but I know that they started to see eye to eye. Okay, you got that?
I have faith in the future, but I've had to analyze many things over the last few years.
Pause. So what he's saying is, he said I had to analyze many of the things over the last few years, because remember, much of his teaching came from Gandhi in India, where he sought out the non-violent approach to winning over your enemy's conscience, because they thought that the white man we could exhibit some sort of remorse and guilt in his conscience to help the black man. Read on, play on.
I've had to analyze many things over the last few years, and I would say over the last few months. I've gone through a lot of soul-searching and agonizing moments, and I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it
Pause. I like that. He realized that, man, I'm going to the master and asking him for crumbs. He realized that. He said, the ideologies that I had were a little bit superficial. What is that? The little black boys and little white boys will hold hands of Jews and Gentiles. That's a Sambo Coon BS. Master, please let me in, master. That's what he realized. He said, man, I think Malcolm and them, I think they really kind of got it. And that's what they feared. And why else would they kill him? He was the most nonviolent, passive Negro in the world. Why would they kill him? You got to really think about that. Now, So that we're going to change gears real quick. Is that 15? We get to 15, or are we done with that? 15 is going into, and we got 45 minutes for the Fische. 15, and we're going to roll through. And brothers, Officer Matt, Officer Iran, y'all from New Orleans, you know? I mean,
I got an Instagram reel from this dude named Boogie B.
Okay.
He recently got murdered right outside of Rouse's downtown.
oh gosh.
But he used to do New Orleans hood history. So we'll play that whenever you're ready.
I was watching him today. That he's pretty anime, colorful brother. What you got there? Okay. So look, these are 10 of the most infamous U.S. housing projects. Now remember, Esau will demonize them, but he's the one that created this situation for housing project, and it goes back to the 30s after the World War II, and it was built up. Jim Crow, Martin Luther King Jr. realized, wait a minute, something ain't right. We tried it their way, and we still getting dumped on. Now, scroll down. We're going to check this list out. This is in St. Louis. I'm telling you, this right here is one of the first major projects built. Let's look at the design of this. Look at how they built it. See how they built that thing? How you going to be happy living? Imagine you in the center building. What you see all around you?
Look, depression.
And you up so high. Okay, that's the Pruitt. I think I pronounced it. In St. Louis, one of the oldest projects. I think it might be the oldest high rises.
Think about it, Cap. Each project building is a square. Each apartment is a square on top of other squares with a big long hallway that's a square. A jail is a square.
Yeah.
A prison cell is a square with a long hallway surrounded by other squares. It's mental and it's psychological how they made it, how they built it, and how they got us in there. That's why we go back and forth to jail, because it's the same living condition, basically.
And the thing about it is these were never designed for human beings to live long term. They're not designed like that. Scroll down, number 9. Number 9, Jordan Downs and Watts, Los Angeles, California. In his videos, hold up. Let's go to number 9. I'm just showing y'all research for yourself. We're just trying to get you to see that there's more to the development of projects, and which is going to lead us to when we read about what happened in the Fische project. It's going to make sense, okay? Jordan Downs, Watts is in Greater Los Angeles, California, and you can watch that. There's a trailer on that, but let's scroll down. Look at number 8. This is Lewis Heighton. These are called the Pink Houses in Brooklyn. We got some brothers I know personally from Brooklyn. My brother was from Brooklyn, and Brooklyn ain't nothing to play with. High rise after high rise after high rise after high rise project building. That's why you hear the term, many of you young ones, the term concrete jungle comes from the streets of New York City. Because everywhere you go, it's just concrete and asphalt, mainly concrete. Scroll down, number 7. Johnson Square, your Baltimore's. Johnston Square Apartments, that's in Baltimore. Check number 6 out. Number 6, Magnolia, home of the soldier. You can speak on that. I know you're from here.
That was a place right there. That was a place right there. Magnolia, if you did not know nobody, you didn't deserve to be back there. Like, my stepmama, she had a business, so we used to go to different projects, and I would go walk with her, and you would see some stuff in the Magnolia.
And if you ever read, a lot of y'all, the rapper Master P, Juvenile, I watched the documentary, and he's scarred because he seen a lot of murders, and he went between the Magnolia projects and the other one that begins with a C. Callio. He was back and forth. He had family in both. Here's the thing. You think Juvenile really wanted to live in the projects? No. You think anybody that grew up in the projects, hey, I'm happy they want to get the hell out. Who the hell want to live in a damn box?
That's why they was hustling so much, because they wanted to get out of the project.
Yes. My brother, he joined the military and joined the French. He ended up in the French commando unit in Germany. They get the hell out of damn New York City. That's what a lot of brothers do. A lot of brothers and sisters, they join the military because it's either the military, you go to jail. If you ain't got a scholarship, playing basketball, doing some stupid sports game, a lot of people don't have a way out, man. Number 5, Techwood Homes, Atlanta. I never heard of Techwood Homes, but probably terrible. Scroll down. Queensbridge. You hear a rapper, one of
Nas.
Nas is from Queensbridge, and I believe the brothers from Mobb Deep. Them brothers, short brothers from Mobb Deep. Them dudes. Queensbridge is no joke. A lot of them, the best rappers, and I'll say this: a lot of when you meet brothers from New York City. They're fast talking, they're quick with it, they think fast, they sharp on their feet, because you got to be. You deal with so many different spirits, you deal with so many different personalities. Just on your way to on the way to the store, you might bump into 20 people. And I remember I used to go to projects like this. I used to meet my brother, he used to tell me, yo, Kai, don't look at nobody, don't say, shut your damn mouth and follow me. And I'd be like, why? He said, just do what I tell you. And I realized, man, because people, they wolves, man. And they smell fear. I'm telling you, you have to be like that. And that's why whenever you go to project, you dumb brothers that wear chains and jewels and stuff, you stupid as hell. Read on. Play on. Robert Taylor Holmes. So what you're going to find is that you see New York and Chicago. Those are the 2 places, because Cook County is the largest population of black people in the entire United States, and New York City has the largest population collectively of black people and Hispanic people. Read on. Play on, excuse me. Scroll down, my bad. Marcy, that's where
Jay-Z.
Sean Carter's from. Yes, Jay-Z.
Meth Bleak.
Yeah. Yep. Marcy is, who was from Marcy that I know somebody from Marcy. I knew a brother from Marcy, and I met him in the Marine Corps. Cool as hell. The brother was cool as hell. Just handled stress like nobody business. Scroll down, number 1. Number 1 is probably New York. No, Cabrini Green. What show was filmed there?
Candyman.
Yes. But I think it was also a show. Was Good Times filmed in Good Times? No.
Nah.
I
don't think
remember.
it was Good Times in Cabrini Green. But I know for sure Candyman was in Cabrini Green.
Right. So look, we're just showing you that in these right here, these projects, it's safe to say about 95% black and Hispanic. Maybe more. You'll find very few white people in those projects. And Asians, and you'll find no damn Arabs up in there. So this is what we did. Now we're going to go to article number 2. And we're going to get into the history of the Fische massacre. Mickey, I was about to say something. Was it? That's what I thought. I could be wrong, but you know what?
That must have been the good part of Cabrini Green.
Yeah, that's what Joaz said too. Good time.
Joaz from there. Hey, you know we got to start doing. And I like Akiem said it. We need to have brothers. I ain't dealing with no scoffers, but brothers call in, and like a show today would have been great if Joaz could have called in, and because I know he's from Chicago. Can he call in? Have Joaz call in. Tell him to put a sandwich down. I'm sorry, 2 sandwiches. My bad. You don't just eat 1 sandwich at a time. I love you, Joe. I was just talking the other night about it. Go ahead and number 2. So we're gonna write down this, and we might not get to everything, but we're gonna cover the bricks of it, the core of it, if you will. And it was not just this one project where our people were massacred. It all started with the death of a white police officer. Okay? A white police officer died. Jesus died. Right. We got it, number 2. Okay. So this is Fische Projects. I'm just showing you what it looked like. One of the taller buildings before it was turned down. Is this the one where they blow it up? Okay. So what's going to happen is, I know I think you said you was around when you was a kid.
Mm-hmm. My daddy had a friend named Al that stayed in the Fische project. And one memory that I do have of the Fische is I was in the back seat and he was going to pick Al up for work because they worked in the same place. And we was at a red light and I said, Daddy, there go Al right there. He said, ain't no Al out here because Al didn't stay where we was parked or where the red light was. So when he looked, Al came running and we thinking he running to the car because he was late for work. He ran past the car. 2 seconds later, somebody ran past the car chasing him. You know what I'm saying? Because it was heroin and PCP that was the drug of choice in the Fische, and he was an addict. So he was doing some stuff, and I witnessed him getting chased down the street by some dude.
Damn. And they actually, one of the videos that they actually mentioned that it was not crack. It was heroin, and like you mentioned, this would look like, and throughout the U.S. they're still doing it, taking down projects like this, because again, these were not meant for long-term housing. These were not designed with the thought we just got stuck. That's why they call it the trap. Play.
5, 4, 3,
2, 1.
We're gonna start rolling here. Like I said, we took down a little historical backdrop of why and how project was started. Section 8 was not even started until the 70s, and they both were designed for transition around factories and war production. And then after World War II, white people had white flight. They got to leave because they got the loans and they were redlined into safe suburban neighborhoods. And a lot of us got stuck in the projects, not because we love to live there, it's because where the hell else you going to go? Okay. Number, was it 3 I said? Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit of reading now because we want everyone to understand that this is literally no more than 15 minutes at the last school. We just crossed the bridge, probably about 15 minutes away. Not even really. Probably less than 5 miles, but probably a 15-minute drive with no traffic from where we were at. Let's go ahead and read.
Infamous Algiers 7 police brutality case of 1980s has parallels to today.
Come on.
30 years ago, this week, a single gunshot changed New Orleans' relationship with its police force.
I wonder what happened with that single gunshot. Read on.
Algiers 7 protests. Times-Picayune archived the 6 demonstrators who occupied Mayor Ernest Morrow's office for 3 days in June 1981. March with fists raised as they leave New Orleans City Hall. From left are Khalid Yasalam.
So these are black folks that are going into the mayor's office because something so horrific happened that they begin to protest. So let's scroll down and take a look at this picture if we can see. If we have to, we just go to the next article. We got a lot of content. You can go to number 4 or 5 if that's not going to work.
And that article was from 2010, so it's like 40-something years or 30-something years today. But the Fische project was no joke. All right, one police officer lost their life, and NOPD came in there and massacred our people.
Hey, pull up number 4. Can you pull 4, or you wasn't able to? Okay, this is from the Washington Post. This got national coverage. This was not just Louisiana. This got national coverage of what happened to our brothers. It was a war. The police officers took the law in their own hands, and they we're gonna read about it.
7 New Orleans policemen charged with rights offenses. A federal grand jury here today charged 6 police detectives, and 1 former detective with violating the constitutional rights of black citizens.
There's a difference between a detective and a regular police officer. A detective is supposed to have a higher moral stance, better education, more experience. So these are detectives. These aren't beat cops that just came out of the police academy that they're on probation. These are detectives that had this happen to them. These are supposed to be the elites. You don't make a detective. You ever hear these movies say, oh, I'm going to try to make detective. You make detective, that's a big deal. Okay?
You got to pass a very stringent test.
Yes. To be, you are still a police. You wear suits or plain clothes. You still have a badge. And it's more money. It's more opportunity. And you have to be a stellar cop. Like, for example, if you're in the military, not anyone can just be selected to go to Ranger School or selected to go to become a drill instructor. You have to be one of the best. So to become a detective, you got to know your stuff. So we're not talking about average guys here. And I want everyone to understand that. What happened was it was literally an abuse of authority. What happened to these people? Read on.
They were questioning and connections with last year's slaying of one of their fellow officers.
So one of the fellow officers, let's find out what his race is. Read on.
The officers handcuffed and tied persons in their custodies to a chair, struck them over the head with a large book, struck them in the chest with their fist, and bagged them. The indictment say bagging refers to the practice of putting a plastic bag over a person's head. The indictment said. So these detectives who are high-level police officers, because one of their constituents, one of their colleagues got killed, and now they're torturing black people. They're interrogating them through war torture techniques. All right? Play on. I mean, you know what I'm saying. The interrogations resulted from the November 8th shooting in Patrolman, Georgia.
Of Patrolman Gregory.
Oh, excuse me.
Newport.
Damn, brother, you need better glasses.
I do, Cap.
Come on.
Gregory Newport in Algiers, across the Mississippi River from downtown New Orleans. The murder touched off an intense police investigation in that part of the city, centering on the all-black Fische housing project there.
See, and this is why we went there to build on the Fische project. Why don't white people live in the Fische projects? That's my question. Why don't Arabs? Why don't Chinese live there? It's because by design, white folks had opportunities to get loans historically after World War II. These projects, when they begin to build them in the 60s and 70s, they begin to build more and more. They built them in black areas. If you don't have a lot of jobs, what do you end up with? All black projects. It's by design. Now, I'm not condoning the moralities of people in the project because they're wicked as hell. No moral standards. They eat what they want. It's because they're breaking God's laws. The Israelites, they're lost. But we're just showing you what this is happening right here in New Orleans area. And this is not too long ago, about less than, well, now it's 42 years ago, right? But this is in my lifetime, okay? Some of your lifetime. Read on.
During the inquiry, police killed 4 people, including 3.
Wait. Read it again, Officer Micah.
During the inquiry.
So during the inquiry, they investigated the death of one patrolman. During the inquiry of finding out, hey, nigga, you tell me, who do you know? Who did this? They killed 4 people during the what is it called? What's that word?
Inquiry.
Inquiry, which is they were torturing them. They tortured them to death. These are cops. Read on.
Killed 4 people, including 3 who died November 13th in 2 pre-dawn raids.
So I stand corrected. So perhaps it wasn't in the interrogation room when they put plastic bags over their heads.
They was snatching people up, Cap. They went to the project,
right,
and they was snatching people up, and they was questioning them, and in the line of questioning, they ended up killing a couple of them.
And then listen, they report 4. They probably killed dozens. Okay, but to your point, this is what they want you to see. 4, but 4 could have been 40. Read on.
2 of those killed November 13th were suspects that Newport slaying police spokesman said then. Newport was white.
And that's what we're waiting for. Do you think if this was a black cop that they would give 2 doggone cares in the world? A Puerto Rican cop, do you think they really care? They don't give a damn. But when a white man dies, now we can go to war because Esau has that perpetual hatred. Give me that in Ezekiel. I think it's 35. It just came to me. Because what would make you, number one, investigation has to be done. That cop could have been in the wrong, right? Or they could have been he could have been murdered, and that would have been wrong too. But where's the detective? If you're a detective like Sherlock Holmes is the detective, you have to find the facts out, find out what's going, interview people, do the due diligence, not torture and kill and raid people and kill them in the process. I know it's getting late. What did I tell you to get? Please.
It's the book of Ezekiel, chapter 35 and verse 5.
Come on.
Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred.
That's what you're seeing. Esau, the so-called white man, has a perpetual hatred for Jacob, the so-called blacks in America, Judah, right? And that's why one white cop died and caused a war in the city. And the Fische project was a all-black project by design. Okay, read on.
And has shed the blood of the children of Israel.
And that's who them brothers are in the Fische projects. Now they don't know it, but if you go anywhere in New Orleans, where it be Magnolia and all these different projects from the 80s and 90s, that's the flavor of New Orleans. You got white kids today talking about No Limit Soldier. I got a white dude in my job. He knows all the record songs. They love these black rappers from the projects. They love them because you know why? They recognize that they really survived that. They the real troopers. Now, morally, they're wrong. They need to come back to God's commandments. But they're the sort. That's where everybody, when they start pop locking, when they started wearing their hats, down here is big, not where I'm from, but down here, the gold grills. The white boys wasn't doing that. The cats in the projects were doing the gold grills. Now you got Paul Wall in Houston want to do it. Well, he grew up around black people, but my point is that everyone, where our people are at, the way that they rhyme down here, now everybody want to copy that. Wherever Jake be at in some of the most intelligent, smartest, quick-witted, savvy people you're going to meet is from the projects. The most intelligent, because they have to overcome so much trauma and still be able to go throughout their daily lives. And I'm telling you, a lot of them white cops are jealous as hell of some of the brothers in the projects. Okay? And they hate us. They have a hatred for the Israelites. And that's why they did that to our brothers. Read on.
By the force of the sword in the time of their calamity.
In the time of their calamity. Let's go back to the article, please. And y'all brothers, man, from New Orleans, man, y'all, please jump in. Iran, Officer Matt, you brothers, y'all on the panel. Who grew up in New Orleans over here? You got any stories in the projects?
They didn't grow up in the 90s. 90s New Orleans is a whole lot different.
Tell Soraya to call in.
Grew up. But
Soraya used to. All right.
But like what I know about 90s New Orleans and all of this is like I was that little kid that was on the porch. I was that little kid that was part of Master P little basketball program that he had at Rosenwald Gym. Like my cousins was the ones that was doing all the foolishness in the project. So I watched all of it. You know what I'm saying? I watched all of it. I was that little kid that was just sitting, looking at everybody do everything. And, you know, what's being discussed right now as far as the Fische project goes, there was like that slaying, the 7 that they talk about. More happened from that. There was like maybe a 10-year span where the relationship between the Fische project and the New Orleans police was not a good one. There was one, I was trying to look for the article, but I couldn't find it. There was one where a brother was so frustrated that he stood on top of one of the Fische project buildings and was just shooting at different police officers. and it took a helicopter to snipe him down and kill him.
Right.
And but that was the growing frustration over the years from that one little thing that happened with the 4 brothers that got killed and the 7 police officers that got charged. From that point, the relationship between those who were supposed to protect and serve and the actual community, it was bad. It was bad.
And I remember I had when I first moved down here, you hear people's speeches. They keep talking about before Katrina, after Katrina, before Katrina. Well, during the Katrina, a lot of brothers was downtown or uptown, and they had to cross the Crescent River City Bridge to get home because they lived. And so when you look at New Orleans, a lot of people don't realize that New Orleans is split by the Mississippi River. You have the West Bank New Orleans, which is a very small pocket of New Orleans, but it's the only part that's on the West Bank. And these are the only major projects in West Bank New Orleans, right?
Yeah, the Fische was the only project.
Right, the only one. And so what you're going to find is that during Katrina, some of them was at work, some of them was they were just trying to get home to cross the bridge. The police, this is what I was told by many people, they was murder them as they was trying to cross. It would not let them cross the bridge. And these brothers lived on that side of the river because over on the West Bank, it never floods. It's higher up and the levees it would take the Mississippi River to crest for it to flood. But on the East Bank where downtown, Gentilly, the East, all that flooded by feet and foot of water.
Yeah, it was building, like halfway building, because when I came home that December, and you could still see the water line on all of the buildings. So the water was very high in every part of the city. On the West Bank, they had roof damage, and West Bank didn't flood like that. But on the East Bank, it was bad. It was bad. A lot of buildings, a lot of the areas, especially like the Lower Ninth Ward, still today in 2023, still ain't been touched since Katrina. They just left it.
And also, remember that in the East, they have a Six Flags that they were supposed to rebuild. They never rebuilt that.
Yes.
I don't know if it was Katrina that caused that, but
Drew Brees, yeah, Katrina did cause it, and Drew Brees, from what I understand, just bought that lot. Okay. So he probably trying to turn it into some sort of sports complex or whatever. But this is the first time that somebody has done something with it since Katrina.
All right, so look, let's wow, it's almost 11 already. Can we pull up the video number 5? Because that right there is sometimes a video, we need a visual. It's the Algiers 7 versus police corruption, the early 80s, and it's going to basically give us understanding. And there was one particular cop we're going to read about. He actually, when somebody stands up and says the truth, they call him a whistleblower, which still don't make no sense to me to this day. You're saying a whistle, what you stopping the regular flow of BS? That's what a ref takes a whistle and goes, stop. So that means BS and corruption just flows. And when you blow the whistle, you're stopping the flow of progress. It makes no sense because it's a corrupt city. New Orleans is a corrupt city. You got that? Okay, pause real quick. So this is the bridge I was just talking about. So this is the Mississippi River, or they call it the Crescent City Connection. There's 2 ways. This separates New Orleans downtown, and the Mississippi River flows under that, and it's a very long bridge. And when you get over, it's pretty much right there. If you look out and you look straight to the left, that's where the Algiers, that's where the Fische Project's over to the left side. To the right side is called Jefferson Parish, which is actually, it's a different, they call them parishes down here, not counties. It's a whole different county, which is a different jail system as well. So just to share this, I go over this every single doggone day. Sometimes I go over it 6-7 times a day.
At one point in time, Cap, there was only one bridge.
I heard about that.
Yeah, there was only one bridge. The other bridge is the new bridge, the one that looks more gray. That's the new bridge. But the old one, there was only one bridge to go over the water.
All right, let's play. We're just gonna let it play out. We'll stop.
Yeah, from like right here, that's the West Bank. So from right here, you would be able to see the Fische. No, that look like it's going across the river. It look like it's going to the East Bank. But you would be able to see the Fische project from the bridge. Soon as you see it, it can put knots in your stomach, especially if you got to get off on General de Gaulle. If you got to get off on General de Gaulle exit, back in the days, that was you dreaded that because of the violence that you could possibly run into just going home or dropping somebody off, or you got to pass through that area to get to your house. Man, the Fische, that was a place you did not want to get caught.
Yeah. Is there a shorter? I don't want to play all of them. I want something that's going to be. Yeah. Put where Joe ass at? All right. Put your call on. You call from New Orleans. Hey, shalom, officer, you call. What's going on, brother?
Hey, shalom, Cap. Most High in Christ bless. Most High in
Hey.
Christ bless.
What's happening, hey, bro? Listen, I know you have a history in New Orleans. Can you tell us a little bit about the Fische projects from what you living and raised in New Orleans, and you're in your 40s. I don't give you age, but I know you're in your 40s. Tell us a little bit about the Fische projects, and if you can recall or heard stories about when this event happened, when them brothers got killed.
That actually happened the same year I was born, Cap. So, but I heard about the event. I had family members that lived in the Fische project. My great grandmother lived in the Fische project during that time. So I heard stories about it. But like I said, I was born the same year that happened.
Right, but I mean,
I did.
It was talked about though throughout your childhood.
Oh yeah. That, and also an instance not in a Fische project, but in a Desire project, where they had a shootout with the Black Panthers in the NOPD. That was also talked about as well.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, they had a big division of the Black Panthers out here, huh?
Yep, a big division of the Black Panthers. And like I said, they had a shoot. It was a standoff in a Desire project. I think that was in 1970. But they would always, my people would always talk about that as well.
Hey, and those of y'all who've been to New Orleans before, the Desire Project is right around the corner from where our school used to be.
Right. And also, I wanted to add something too, Officer Matt. They did have another project in Algiers. It was called they called it the Gaulle Manor. I'm not sure if you familiar with the graffiti building that they painted. They call it Exhibit B. But that was once a project as well.
Where the Chris at?
Yeah.
Yeah. What I was saying was that was the only project building on this side at that time that the Fische was built. But yeah, you're right. The Chris was because
Yep.
So look, man, officer call, man. I know that you be out on the road, man. Be safe out there, brother. But any other things that if you could just speak about, it's not the Fische Project is one example of the police brutality towards our people. You growing up in New Orleans, I'm sure you have had some and I'm not trying to bait you. If you have any experiences, please share, because this is something that is not just going on in New Orleans, but
So I'm actually from the West Bank of New Orleans, and I grew up in and around the Marrero Project, and I had an instance with the cops at a young age. The most memorable one is when I was 16 years old, and I was trying to be a little hustler, and it had a situation that came about to where I had to run from them, and when they caught me, they went upside my head with a flashlight and gave me 7 stitches in my head.
Damn.
That was my first encounter with the police.
Yeah, bro.
Now, can I ask, were you being resistant, or did they just?
Yeah, I ran from them. So anytime you run, if you get caught, that's pretty much your butt.
Right. See if they catch you.
Yep.
Well, look, man.
So So I quickly repented from that from those wannabe hustler days after that happened. That that woke me up quick.
Right, right. Well, all praises, man. You call, obviously, call. Appreciate you calling in, bro. Hey, man, I remember we used to have a small beard. That beard, it looks like it's about to punch the lion in the face down there, bro. Look how big that beard is, bro. All praises.
Yeah. No more captivity for my beard.
Yes, sir. Hey, obviously, call, man. Stay in the spirit, Lord. What we see you on the Sabbath. Be safe on the road out there, bro. All right.
All right. All praises. Shalom. Most High in Christ bless.
All right. Most High in Christ bless. Hey, go to number. I want an article because I want to get names. And then I want to look at that cop before we close out. Number 6. What does 6 say? Let me see that. Number 6. Wikipedia. Let's do Wikipedia. This we can read this, and then we're gonna jump down to number. Oris Buckner was a cop that actually brought light on it, or some more light to it, because obviously everybody knew what was going on. Yeah, go ahead. Number 6. All right, so let's see here. Scroll down. I want to see the part where it talks about development. There should be something that goes into the massacre or some sort of 1980 history. Crime problems. History. Actually, scroll. Actually, I want to see the building. Fische Housing Project. Let's read that. Let's read it pretty quick, though.
Fische Housing Projects was constructed in January 1964 and opened in 1965 on 48 acres of land adjacent to the Mississippi River Bridge.
So when you, like Officer Matt said, when you go over the bridge, you can actually look down and see it. It's adjacent right to the bridge. Read on.
And its approach roads. The development was isolated from other West Bank communities by the bridge.
Right. So it was hidden basically by the bridge, and it was a poor, impoverished area. And guess what? It's an all-black project, all right? I wonder why. I wonder if that was by design. Read on.
The Donna Canal and a Southern Pacific Railroad line. The 14 low-rise buildings were built in a long...
So there were 14 low-rise buildings. Read on.
Were built in long parallel lines and positioned using the scattered site method, resulting in large park areas covering approximately 60% of the 48-acre
A lot of parking. Read on.
The 13-story high-rise building was constructed in 1966.
So first there was low-rises in 1964, opened in 65, and then they built the high-rise building in 66. Read on. And that was, go ahead.
And served as a housing for the elderly.
So that was supposedly for the older of our people. Read on.
Upon completion of the high-rise, the development had a total of 1,002 units.
Like Officer Matthew said, 1,002 boxes stacked on boxes. Read on.
The development also included Murray Henderson Elementary School.
That's what they would do. They put the schools right there in the projects. So your whole life you're surrounded by it. You're surrounded by, you're institutionalized. Read on.
Constructed in 1965, and William J. Fisher Elementary School, which opened in 1967.
You heard that? They had 2 elementary schools. That's how many kids.
The Fisher Elementary School is still there.
Still there. Read on.
Over the years, the development became run down and saw a rise in violent crime similar to other public housing developments in New Orleans.
Right. So the Magnolia, the Fisher, what's the other? Desire, all of them had similar problems. Why? Because they were designed, since after World War II, they were designed to catch the remnant of our poor people. And they didn't have, there's no such thing as black flight. They had white flight. Read on.
And around the country. The Fisher projects made national headlines in the news in 1980.
National headlines, because why? Because of what the detectives did. They murdered, they tortured black residents of the Fisher projects. Read on.
When a police officer was murdered in retaliation.
A white police officer was murdered. I know it doesn't say that. I'm just, so, because if it's been a black cop, there would be no riots. Read on.
In retaliation of the murdered officer, 4 black men were killed in a raid by officers.
4 black men that they want you to know about. And there were many other men that died in that city for other reasons that we're not going to know about related to that. Now, the next article is, unless you had that video back up, that's 11 minutes. It's too long.
You want to do that
Yes.
real quick
He's
reel?
good. That guy's good. He does
Do
it
that
quick.
hood history one. Yeah, this guy Boogie B, he was a comedian, but he do a lot of hood history around New Orleans. They caught him? Both of them? Oh, okay. Just refresh the page.
Hey, real quick, while you get that, there's a number 11 gives names, and it's a little bit more comprehensive from Blogsport. We're going to close out with that. We're going to do a little reading for that because it actually gives faces of some of the brothers that lost their life.
On the only housing project in New Orleans that's on the West Bank. We call it the Fische. Now, the Fische project was built in 1965 in Algiers. We call it the 1.5 or the 15th ward. It's named after William J. Fische, who worked for the Housing Authority in New Orleans at the time. The Fische project was real close-knit because it was one 13-story building and 14 3-story buildings, all low income. Normally, I'll say the crack moved in the 80s, but in the Fische project, it was mostly heroin and PCP by the 80s. Call it Clickum juice. And the Fische had a problem with the police all the time because the police got killed back there in 1980, and then in 81, 7 police came back there and killed 4 people. It was good people in the Fische project too, but in the 90s, the crime was legendary, so I couldn't go see them. Like the rest of the projects, they blew the Fische up and put a housing community called the Fische right there with all low-income housing. So if you in New Orleans and you come to this sign and say General de Gaulle and you get off, make sure you go left. Because on the right is the Fische Project, and they got some 150 boys that'll send you back the other way. Let me stretch y'all out fast with this New Orleans.
That's it. But, I mean, he making light of it, but he ain't lying. He's not lying. Like, the relationship between the police and the residents there was never the same after the 80s. It never was the same. You always had drama back there in the Fische Project, and like you were saying, Cap, it's surrounded by the bridges. Mm-hmm. They got the Crescent City connection on one side. You got the rest of the Pontchartrain bridge that come on that side. You got the West Bank Expressway that continues on the other side, and it's right there in the middle. It's all it is. It's just surrounding you in all of that one little block area.
1,002 or 1,005 rectangular apartments stacked on top of each other in other boxes with 2 elementary schools right in the middle.
Yep.
I'm telling you, it's by design, and we got to see it for what it is. This is that done with that, brother? Yes. Let's go to I think it's number is it 11? We're going to read this. So we're going to close out with this. This is from about 11 years ago, but it gives some understanding. This is, I believe that might be on Canal. Remember, James Billy was one of the men that was murdered by those police detectives. Let's go ahead and read this.
Local history: Algiers, Fische Projects, Massacre and Resistance, 1980 to 81.
So not all our people took it laying down. They did what they could do at the time, and in their mind, it was to stand and demonstrate. Okay, read on.
The 6 demonstrators who occupied Mayor Ernest Morale's office for 3 days in June 1981 march with fists raised as they leave New Orleans City Hall.
So that's downtown, right? City Hall. Yep. Read on.
From left are Kamula Yasalim, Marcio Duncan, Cynthia Riley, Daniel Janikin, and Martin Lefstein. The 6 protesters.
There had to be Edomite up in there. Lefstein. Always got to be somebody in the midst of us. Read on.
The sixth protesters is out of view inside the doorway. The signs around their necks bear the names of the people killed in the Algiers 7 shootings.
So they've got different names. Billy was one of the names. So we're going to read, because this is going to really kind of put a little bit more perspective. So y'all, listen, reading is good sometimes.
After a white NOPD officer, Gregory Newport, was killed near the Fische housing projects in November 1980.
It didn't say in the Fische. He was close to the Fische, but it wasn't in the projects. Read.
Mobs of police officers went on a rampage in the black section of the Algiers neighborhood on the West Bank.
Read on.
Within days of the shooting, police were calling in about being harassed by the police.
Read it again. Within days of shooting.
Within days of the shooting, people were calling in about being harassed by the police,
right?
Being thrown up against the wall, about young men being marched through the projects with their hands up like prisoners of war in massive roundups.
Massive. So they was rounding up brothers by the dozens. Massive means many, many, many. They were just no trial, no any type of rights, just rounding them up like a war camp. Read on.
Residents had stories of being handcuffed and beaten by police with a hardback city director.
I believe that's talking about a phone book.
Yep.
So I'm going to tell you something. So 4 brothers died, but it could have been 400 brothers, 50 brothers, so whatever. If there's 1,000 some odd, if there's 1,000 apartment complexes there, let's say the average family is 4. So they say there's 4,000 people that live there. So maybe there was, let's say, for example, 800 black men between the ages of, let's say, 12 and maybe 25, right? Hundreds of brothers lived there. They was rounded up massive amount. I mean, you gotta picture what you're seeing there. Read that part again.
Residents had stories of being handcuffed and beaten by police with a hardback city director.
Beating the hell out of them with a phone book. That thing hurt.
That thing weigh about 5 pounds.
Yeah. Right. You the big giant,
before
the internet, that's how there's an old thing, it says let your fingers do the walking. Because that's how we found stuff. We had no internet. We had none of that. You used the phone book, you bought books, you played board games, and then when the Nintendo came out, it was the beginning of the end. Atari and all that came out, it was the beginning of the end. Okay? Read on.
Of being suffocated by having plastic bags put over their heads. And
read the part where it says being thrown against the wall. Then it says about young men.
Okay, did I miss? Okay. Being thrown up against the wall. About young men being marched through the projects with their hands up like prisoners of war.
Now, my question is, what would make them have their hands up? They was being drawn on. They had weapons on them. And they was rounding them up by massive rounds up. Massive is not 16 people. Massive is the whole courtyard, parking lot, just rounding them up. You, move over there. Move, all of you. They had weapons drawn on them. I'm telling you, man, this goes back to the perpetual hatred Ezekiel talked. Read on.
Residents had stories of being handcuffed and beaten by police with a hardback city director.
They can't just say phone book. Read on.
Of being suffocated by having plastic bags put over their heads, and of 2 young men who were taken out to the swamp and marched onto a wooden bridge of a levee, who had a shotgun put to their heads in a mock execution to try to get information about who killed Newport.
You see how precious that white life is? See how precious that white life is? It's amazing. Read on.
The weeks-long vicious NOPD assault.
I'm not saying it's wrong to kill. That's wrong. I'm not making light of that. It's just amazing how if that had been a black patrolman that got killed, this would have never happened, because the police value their white officers and they don't value black officers, for the most part, all right? You might have one brother that's decorated and they might all go to his funeral and salute, but they're not going to ride like this. But this is one of their own that got killed. Now they got to tear stuff up. Read on.
The weeks-long vicious NOPD assault culminated in the murders of 4 innocent people.
Man, I don't believe it says weeks long. I think they did that for months, like your call said, and Officer Matthew said. After that, it was never the same. So this is years long, and it was years long of and you're scarred. You got to imagine you being 14 years old, and you being drawn on, and masses of brothers are being rounded up, getting questioned. You don't think that's going to stick with you? You got a stigma in your mind where everywhere you go, you're looking at me. Oh, is they going to do that to me again? Psychologically, now that's why a lot of we don't trust. We're grown men with wives and children. A cop get behind you, and you get worried, man. Oh shit! If I get pulled up, man. Yeah, go ahead. Read on, Officer Mike.
The weeks-long vicious NOPD assault culminated in the murders of 4 innocent people and injuries to as many as 50.
So that's what they say, injuries to 50. I believe it was much, much more than that, okay? All right? They say 50. Read on.
The first person killed by the NOPD in its revenge attacks on the community was Raymond Ferdinand, and 38-year-old Fische, a 38-year-old Fische resident.
This man was almost 40 years old. Read on.
Days later, James Billy, Reginald Mills, and Miles' girlfriend, Sherry Singleton, was all killed simultaneously in police raids on 2 separate residences.
Now, these are in the Fische projects. So here's the thing. Like you mentioned, if you hear a raid, you know how many people heard that go down? In the projects, it's a big square. You might have, let's say, 30 apartments on your floor. Boom, 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 boom. And they come in, they heard all of that. They had to come into the project building to do that. When they say residents, it's not talking about a cottage out in the woods. They came up into the projects blazing, terrorizing these people. I'm telling you. And remember, before that happened, they was rounding up by the masses. They was drawing on young brothers. You got to really understand what's going on. This is a 38-year-old man. Okay? It's not like it's a 16, 17-year-old troublemaking teenager. These are residents. Okay? And they were attacked and murdered. Okay? Cops are going to die in the line of duty. And I'd like to know, where's the investigative report? How do we know what actually happened to that cop? What if he was a corrupt cop? What if he did something that was wrong?
Watch, Cap. I'm telling you, this is where the NOPD started to really click up and become that gang that they are when we was growing up. Watch.
Read on.
Raids based on accusations made under duress from the 2 men mock execution on the bridge. The police murdered Sherry Singleton while she was laying in the bathtub naked.
So that means her guard was down. She was in the bathtub. They broke down the door. You think that she let him in? So she let him in. Hey, come on. And then went back into the tub and got finished. They rolled up and broke the damn door down, guns, and just murdered in cold blood. And again, anytime you ever been to a project, you hear what's going on on that floor. You hear the floor above and the floor below. They were terrorized. This is, by the way, just to be clear, this is not that just happened in just the Fische project. This happens in all projects historically. Like what happened in Rosewood. That wasn't a project, but the same thing that happened in Tulsa and Rosewood, Fische. This is just it's just 80 years later, 50 years later. Okay, and guess what? It's going to be another Fische project that's going to happen. They did the same thing in Philadelphia when they bombed them buildings. Okay? And it's more to the story why, and I'm not justifying murder. It's wrong to shoot cops. It's wrong to murder anybody. But why did the cop, I'd like to know, what was the murder rule for that? They keep talking about a white cop died. How do we know he didn't try to plant drugs on somebody? How do we know he wasn't doing something? How did we know that he wasn't trying to kill a black brother and the black brother shot in self-defense? We don't know that. And for these men to act like that, he probably was cut from the same cloth. I'm telling you a lot of stuff. Like, remember Rodney King, the whole thing? The reason why Rodney King got national attention, because somebody in the distance got that thing on video. If that wouldn't have been on video, you would have never heard about no Rodney damn King. Never. And there was many, before they had the common, in the 80s, in the early 80s, if you had a video camera, you was rich. Not everybody could afford that. Like today, everybody on the iPhone, everyone got one of these. It's got a good camera. There's so many times brothers got hummed up in the 60s, 70s, 80s, where there was nobody to film, and no one knows about it. Okay, no one cares, no one knows about it. Well, we care, but read on.
The police said the 3 murder victims had guns.
Yes, sir. Yes. All right, let's just finish this up. We're going to get Joaz.
The police said the 3 murder victims had guns, and every cop there stuck to that
Wait, hold
story.
up. Okay, so thank you, Officer Micah. So she's in the bathroom with a doggone Magnum, a Colt, or whatever the hell, in the tub. He's stupid as hell. These cops they're lying.
And they all stuck together. They all stuck together on it and did not budge.
Wow. Read on.
Local civil rights attorney Mary Howell was able to go in and see the bloody clothing all over the place and the bullets lodged in the walls where Singleton and Miles were killed. As the police knew, not securing the crime scene would make any case against them more difficult in court. Sherry Singleton also had a 4-year-old son with her in the apartment who watched as the police murdered his mom.
So that brother was 4 years older than Officer Yakal. Officer Yakal, who just called in, was born that year. So that man is still a relatively young man. And if he's still alive, how does he live with that? How does he live with that? Going to school, every time he sees a cop, he's worried. He killed my mom, he might kill me. And that stemmed from all that torture. It said 50 people got beatings and hurt from that. Many men were rounded up that they report. It was probably many more that was done. And this is the reason why. And it goes back to us being cursed, man. We're the Israelites. And this should tell you that we are the real Jews. We are the 12 tribes. And when you see stuff like this, it should enrage you to do what? To turn back to the Father, live a righteous life, and use these examples. So when we out there teaching, we could talk about what happened in the Fische projects in New Orleans. It wasn't right what happened. And now we can go in description and say, well, why would these white cops, this is the reason why. Ezekiel 35:5, Leviticus chapter 26, they hate you, black men. Why? And then there's a teaching tool. We have to use these stories. And we have to share these brothers, because some of them that was raised in, they just had a 50th year anniversary Fische project I was watching on YouTube. A lot of them are still alive that lived in the projects in the 80s. They're still alive. And some of them can repent. Maybe somebody will get this video. Yeah, you're the Israelites. You brothers that grew up in the Fische projects, you lost your way. Okay? Turn back to the Most High God. Keep the commandments. All right? Read on.
Finally, one cop, Oris Buckner, the lone black NOPD officer who was present at one of the fatal raids.
So now one cop, this brother, he was the whistleblower, meaning that these white cops were so emboldened, they did that around the black cop. This guy had a little bit of dignity. He said, hold up, man. They are murdering and torturing my people. He actually stood up, and I wonder what happened to the brother, but Oris Buckner stood up and as a cop himself and said, this is wrong. So this is one of the raids. So he's like, nope. Read on.
Told the FBI that these people were murdered, that they didn't have guns. Of course, people from the neighborhood knew what the truth was the whole time, and they organized to demand repercussions against the police for their reign of terror.
That's exactly what it was, a reign of terror. Read on.
They held protests, leafleted at Labor Day picnics, and formed the African American Police Brutality Committee.
And so get me that in Amos that says, in their affliction they shall seek me early. And that's what you're going to find, and this was not too far after the Civil Rights Movement, only about 12 years after the Civil Rights Movement. That's what it's going to take in these last days for our people to wait. We're about to close out. Tell Joaz to stay right there. When our people begin to when they continue to go through things like this, and there's going to be more. What happened to the brother George Floyd? This was on social. Everyone's watched the man get murdered on social media. Okay, there's going to be more and more events where our people, and this is why we have the spirit to organize. But because when our organizers under the Most High God and His laws and His Son Christ, we get great titles on paper, but nothing gets done. We have to turn back to the Most High. And it's tough to hear about what happened to these brothers, man. Especially that little brother, 4 years old, sit there, see his mom killed, and she was in the bathtub. He had to come in, and imagine what he had to come and see all that blood. and then he got to go to school. He got to grow up without a mom. Man, that's crazy, bro. You gotta. All them brothers that was rounded up and at gunpoint like cattle. You know, that thing, and that just proves to you that we are the Israelites. You brothers, man, share this video, man. Read.
The book of Hosea, chapter 5 and verse 15. I will go and return to my place.
And a lot of them brothers be like, man, where God at? That's a lot of brothers, when they was being rounded up, when they was being mocked, walked out to the levee, a lot of them was praying to the Most High, right? But God is hiding himself from them. Read on.
So they acknowledge their offense.
And as soon as they realize that they're the Israelites, they must turn back and repent of the laws of God that they are breaking. That's what all you brothers need to do that live in all these projects throughout the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, all throughout the Americas, Cabrini Green, all these different places that was torn down and you moved on to other places. You know you special. You brothers who grew up in the project, you know you special. You know you set apart. You know you got the flavor. You know you got the style. You know everybody want to be like you. Everyone want to talk like you, walk like you, and all that. It's because you are the salt. You the flavor of the earth. But you brothers have followed the ways of this world in America. You better repent, okay? Because you have to live by a code of God, or you're going to die by the code of sin. Read on.
Till they acknowledge their offense and seek my face.
You got to seek God's face. How you do that? It's in the Bible. Go and find out what God needs you to do. Go to our website, www.israelunite.org, and check us out, man. Joaz is on the line. Joaz, what's good? What's good?
Not much, Cat. What's going on with the family?
Hey, man, I didn't know you was in. Hey, you was in San Francisco, bro. The Golden Gate Bridge. Joaz, hey, how did he get out there? You got a bridge behind you, bro.
I can barely hardly hear y'all. You know I'm old with these technology.
Hey, Joaz, hey, tell us what was it like, man? I know that you grew up in Chicago. Just tell us a little bit about your experience.
Oh man, it was nice compared to what's going on now, but it was still a lot of out of control. You know, we had the gang violence. You couldn't go see your friends in the projects if you wasn't from the right neighborhood. You know, they was doing everything they possibly can. They take your shoes from you and send you home.
Damn.
You know, you be 8 blocks away from your house. They take your shoes out the project and send you home with no tennis shoes on. Take your money out your pockets. It was rough, Cap. You know, they even, had little children hanging out the window at the Robert Taylor project.
Damn. And now we were just talking about the history of the projects that they started. They used to build them out of better materials. And as after World War II, a lot of they call it white flight. And the white folks got houses in the suburbs. And a lot of us a lot of black folks that went to Chicago, they were fleeing the South. And they ended up in these factories and different places. And a lot of our people, the only place they had to live was these urban housing projects. And we were just talking about that, bro, you know? Hey, Joaz, what the hell is going on with his camera?
But you know, Cap, back during them times, you know, when my pops left Mississippi, you know, he left Mississippi when he was 12 years old.
Damn.
And he would never go back home. He said during them times they was making like 10 cents an hour, and they thought they really had it going on. So the money was good to them back then.
Right.
You know, then so they wasn't buying no houses, but of course they was moving into the projects and stuff like that. And you know, that was better than what they had where they left from.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Officer Joaz, man, and we was talking about Cabrini Green, and I thought that when they show you the family with Florida and James and JJ and all them, everybody had a crush on Thelma. Everybody loved Thelma. But you remember, did you have any family or any people that you knew that grew up in Cabrini?
I worked in Cabrini Green as a security guard when I was 21 years old.
Hey, tell us about that, because that was one of the we just watched a video, and I'm not glorifying because it's horrible. Cabrini Green was the worst infamous project in the whole United States. So you worked it. Tell us what some of the things you must have seen, bro.
man, the Cabrini Green was so rough, man. The rats ran you around. Rats was bigger than cats.
Damn.
And you know, it was. I mean, I'm gonna say it was pretty rough, but you know, but I grew up in the gangbanging era, so with me it was pretty cool because I know who to talk to and I knew what to say and what didn't to say.
Right.
You know, so
you know how to
but
move.
for somebody that didn't know what it was or wasn't from that area, you know what I'm saying? You like you say, you keep your mouth shut and you keep moving.
Right, brother. Want to wear a big ass chain. You're stupid as hell. Well, look, Joaz, man, all praise to the Most High, brother, and thanks for calling in. Definitely sharing your experience. I did not know you worked as a security guard in the worst, most infamous project. And let me tell you something about the Cabrini Green. I had known brothers, not grow up with them, but who came from there, and some of the most mightiest, smartest men you ever gonna meet came out the projects. You know what I'm saying? It's got a bad rap, but from my experience, the people that I was most close with in the world before I came to this truth, the smartest brothers, the brothers I learned the most from, the best lessons from for during that time were from the projects. So, you know, this not all, you know, doom and gloom that we talk about. There's some great men that came out of there. And but anyways, I'm being long-winded. I'm tired as hell, Joaz, man. Hey, you got to work in the morning, bro?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, man.
Thank God it's Friday.
Yes, sir. TGIF. Look, Joaz, man.
Right.
Hey, have a good night, Officer Joaz. Thanks for calling in, brother, sharing your experience, bro.
Y'all brothers have a good night.
All right, man. Most High Praise Bless. Look, we got, I think that's it. We 11:30. We're late. That was it, right? We got to everything, didn't we? Almost everything. All right, we get ready to close out. Hey, thanks for staying with us. I know it's late. I'm tired as hell. You brothers that faithful listeners, listen, we're about to change the show up a little bit. We're going to make it a little bit more chopped up, a little bit more humorous. We're going to bring back Officer Matt. As you know, Officer Matt is a premier recording artist for original royalty. He's got that song. Everybody know the song Dragon, right? Everybody know it. So we're going to bring back Kingdom music. We got a new excellent Officer Mikhail and Iran put together the new promo, and it's fire. The thing is fire. So we trying to get to 20,000 subscriptions, and we know it's tough being on a late show. A lot of y'all go to sleep early, but listen, we trying to keep y'all hooked. But with that, we get ready to roll. I got nothing else to say. Take us away.
All right. Give alms, people. Give alms. Give alms to your local school. Drop an envelope in the alms box. Give online via PayPal if you want to continue to see precept upon precept continue to evolve. Give alms to IUIC New Orleans. Or you can give alms to IsraelUnite.org, okay? To give to the Booster Club via PayPal is IUIC.fundraising@IsraelUnite.org. And once again, for New Orleans, it's IUIC.NewOrleans@IsraelUnite.org, all right?
Hey, real quick, Mikhail just said something. When you get a chance, y'all read about a brother named Oris Buckner. He was a police officer he actually just died about 4 months ago. And he was one of the brothers that brought light. And he actually stood up for what was right because the other cops wasn't going to say nothing. He stood up and said, this is right. They're being murdered. They didn't have any weapons. So read about that brother. There are some black men that stood up for their people. All right? They're not all sellouts. All right? All right, so with that, Officer Matt.
Oh, a good show.
Hey, look, y'all, and we just hope that we inspire y'all to look into other history. Actually, sister sent us to Officer Mikhail, said we should do a show on it. All praise. If y'all have ideas of things we could do a show, let us know. We working on the content. We understand it's not always easy to come up with stuff. But anyways, I'm talking too much. We about to take it away. Hey, Most High and Praise Bless. With that, we say
Shalom.
Shalom.
You're fed up with the Hebrews.
Yeah.
They came to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
After Kyrie was banned. And they stood outside. It was probably like 200-300 of them.
What they do? Just stood there?
From that video, yeah.
Yeah. They wasted everybody's time, including Neil. They talk that Hebrew, we this, we that. Show us, nigga. Stop making movies. Stop sounding poetic and intelligent.
Second Ezra chapter 7, verse 57. Then answered he me and said, this is the condition of the battle.
See that? This is the condition of, y'all see those two words? The battle. This, y'all gotta see, this whole thing is a spiritual battle.
Joseph